Welcome to the important news of Afghanistan on Monday, June 23rd, 2025. Perwana Everhimkul, a women's rights activist and founder of the Women for Peace and Freedom movement, brought the voices of Afghan women to the world at the United Nations Human Rights Council meeting in Geneva. She called for action against gender apartheid and greater support for Afghan women and courageously spoke out about the oppression, discrimination, and violations of women's rights by the Taliban. Ms. Nadrabi said in an exclusive interview that these meetings are valuable to her because they provide an opportunity for the voices of Afghan women to be heard around the world. She emphasized, "The active participation of women in these programs is a sign of their dynamism and the strength of their voices, and it helps make their advocacy more effective on the international stage." Ebrahim Nadrabi was arrested by the Taliban in January 2022 after participating in street protests and was imprisoned and tortured for 27 days. According to her, this bitter experience is still an ongoing nightmare in her life, and it motivates her to continue fighting for the freedom and rights of Afghan women. Amir Khan Machaki, the acting foreign minister of the Taliban, and Hakan Fidan, the foreign minister of Turkey, met during the 51st session of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation Foreign Ministers meeting in Istanbul. In this meeting, the two sides discussed bilateral relations and the regional situation. According to Taliban-controlled news agencies, during these meetings, both officials emphasized the importance of relations between Turkey and Afghanistan and called for expanding these ties. Mr. Mataki, in his remarks, described Turkey as having a special and strategic position in the Taliban's foreign policy and called for the expansion of bilateral cooperation. Despite the fact that the Taliban government has not been recognized as legitimate by Sweden or most other countries after nearly 4 years in power, Turkey is one of the few countries that has maintained close relations with the Taliban. Meanwhile, a number of former Afghan leaders and officials have also sought refuge in Turkey after the Taliban came to power. Rosa Otunbayeva, the head of the United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, UNAMA, is scheduled to speak at the UN Security Council meeting on Afghanistan on Monday, June 22nd. At this meeting, Otunbayeva will provide information about the next steps in the Doha process, which began 2 years ago as a roadmap for a safer and more effective international peace with the Taliban. This meeting is expected to specifically focus on the impact of the Taliban's strict governance on Afghan women and girls. Since returning to power nearly 4 years ago, the Taliban have imposed severe restrictions on women, including closing the doors of schools above 6th grade and universities to girls and women, banning women from gyms, public baths, traveling without a male guardian, and working in many government offices. These actions have faced widespread international criticism. Following the cancellation of the Taliban's largest and first oil contract with the Chinese company CPIC, political analysts see this decision as more than just a technical violation and consider it a reflection of internal and regional instability. The lack of a clear economic outlook, internal government pressures, and political uncertainties are considered the main factors behind the termination of this contract. Political experts believe that Afghanistan and the Taliban lack a stable geopolitical outlook, which is why major international companies are unwilling to take the risk of long-term investment. Last Tuesday, the Taliban announced that they had terminated their 25-year contract with the Chinese company CPIC for oil extraction from the Oz and AMU Darya fields due to the company's violations of the contract terms. At the same time as this decision, Abdul Salam Hanafi, the administrative deputy of the Taliban's Council of Ministers, met with a Chinese ambassador and was then invited by China to participate in an economic exhibition. Some economic experts believe that if the Taliban can replace the company with more reputable firms, this termination will benefit Afghanistan. However, if it leads to isolation, delays, and capital flight, the outcome will be negative. End of the news.